So the first question, HR business partnering is critical. HR business partners are my lifeline. I am absolutely lost. They are my compass. They let me know where is it that I need to focus. They have stakeholders, and those are the stakeholders that we're servicing. I think it's important to understand where you are positioned as a center of excellence. When you're a center of excellence, you are there to support an HR business partnering structure. And that means that those practitioners in those roles are the ones that are going to be driving your purpose, driving your agenda with business. So you need to ensure that you're speaking the same language. You need to ensure that you understand the purpose of the exercise that you're doing. So it's important to take a step back and make sure that your stakeholders, which is your HR business partners, understand what are the processes that we're going to be following in applying these OD principles. Why are we applying these OD principles? What is the outcome? What is the value really in following all of these processes?
Okay, and then just tell me, I mean, there's a lot of things that are changing, right? So we have hybrid work. We get that all the time. People searching for jobs and working from home. How do you think, or how does OD look, or how would it look in the future?
Look, it's going to be even more critical in the future because we need to enable a structure that is going to enable talent to be able to be flexible and work from anywhere. And that is the demand right now. So I'm constantly surprised at organizations that are still trying to bring everyone back into the office. And when we look at the generations that are sitting in our workforce and the generations that are going to plug in as our future leaders, they have a completely different way of work. So, what matters to me at the end of the day is people. I couldn't have moved into any role that does not have anything to do with people. I had the luxury of being an HR business partner and I loved it. I loved getting the phone calls from business. Now a kid just came with pink hair. What do I do? I loved the pace of it. But then I fell in love with OD because it really then provides a science to the HR work, and I've just been enjoying seeing how HR has been evolving over the years. We have HR business partners, it was HR managers, it was HR practitioners. We are now business partners, which, by virtue of the job title itself, it tells you that we are now strategically involved. We are partnering with business. We are not administrating HR. We are benchmarking HR as a support function to business.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Everybody, welcome back to Couch Talk with LHS. My name is Mpele, aka Boss Lady, and as always, I am with Zanele Buthelezi, and today we are joined by Miss Ntshabi Moeketsi, who is an OD and reward lead. How are you? That's okay, that's our signature.
I was not expecting that.
Not ready for this.
No, I was not.
How are you, Ntshabi?
I'm good.
No, okay, thank you.
How are you? I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, Ntshabi, we want to talk about, so we've had a couple of conversations and discussions about the role of HR. We've had somebody talking about payroll, and we know there is an extension to all of these things that we are doing, right?
Yeah.
So today, let's just talk about organizational design.
Yes.
And I know who better to talk about this topic with other than you. So to start off with, what is organizational design?
Okay, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me.
Any day.
So, organizational design is essentially part of the HR value chain. When you look at the HR value chain, you have critical functions that assist us in managing talent in the organization. Organizational design is really a systematic process of ensuring that you have a fit for purpose structure. And systematic in that there is a methodology to it, there is a principle that is applied. And that principle drives what you ultimately see, what everyone has a view of. The final outcome of an OD exercise would be the organizational chart or the organizational structure. The OD principle and methodology is what underpins all of the processes that you follow to get to that organizational chart and to get to that organizational structure.
Just to delve into it, and maybe, for somebody that doesn't understand, because we do have an understanding, but we just want to educate. What are the principles then that are guiding or that are outlining OD?
Look, I think firstly, I would like to address a principle that everyone applies, or majority of organizations apply, which is wrong. Organizational design does not start with talent. Organizational design does not start with people. Organizational design starts with the strategy. Everything that you're doing in organizational design, you focus on your strategy. The strategy is the first point of analysis and assessment. From the strategy, you then build what we call the organizational capabilities. So this is the simplest way that I can explain it, is that an organization has capabilities. People and talent have skills and competencies. So the process of organizational design excludes talent. You are not thinking about people at this point in time. You are purely concerned about the strategy of the organization and interpreting that strategy into the organizational capabilities. Those capabilities will then guide us in terms of what the structure needs to look like. What are the type of roles that will be able to execute the strategy, to execute those organizational capabilities. And at that point, then you'll start to see the roles coming together and you'll start to see a structure coming together. At that point, you then start to look at people. You then start to look at the type of skills and competencies you have in your talent pool that you then match to the roles in the structure.
I like what you just said because it's very important, and this is what most companies do, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about responsibilities, firstly, we talk about, or we base it on people. So Ntsabi earns this much, Ntsabi's at this particular position. When Ntsabi leaves, Nell comes in, it's Nell with this. And it's incorrect because it starts with the job. Like you say, with your strategy, that will determine what sort of jobs you require. And that's where I think HR people come in then to source the correct talent.
Absolutely, you're correct. It traditionally, it has been around, let us look at the talent that we have in the organization. Let us look at the people that we have. Are they the right fit? Where should they be sitting in the structure? Whereas your guideline should be based on the strategy. The strategy is going to change, but it's not going to change in as much as talent changes. So when you are replacing a role, you're replacing a role. You're not replacing a person. You're not looking for a duplicate of Neo.
Exactly.
You are looking for skills and competencies that are going to fit the requirements of the role.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We as we HR people, we normally say that we are strategic HR partners. This forms part of that. Right?
Absolutely.
And you're bringing out the strategy that needs to be in place. What part do we play in terms of the strategy itself? And secondly, in terms of the methodology that you spoke about earlier on, what would you highlight as the main components that needs to form part of that particular methodology?
So the first question, HR business partnering is critical. HR business partners are my lifeline. I am absolutely lost. They are my compass. They let me know where is it that I need to focus. They are, they have stakeholders, and those are the stakeholders that we're servicing. I think it's important to understand where you are positioned as a center of excellence.
Yeah.
When you're a center of excellence, you are there to support an HR business partnering structure. And that means that those practitioners in those roles are the ones that are going to be driving your purpose, driving your agenda with business. So you need to ensure that you're speaking the same language. You need to ensure that you understand the purpose of the exercise that you're doing. So it's important to take a step back and make sure that your stakeholders, which is your HR business partners, understand what are the processes that we're going to be following in applying these OD principles. Why are we applying these OD principles? What is the outcome? What is the value really in following all of these processes? Because at the end of the day, business will want to know, how is this going to impact my business positively? So to give you an example, if an organization says to us, at this point, we would like to grow and expand the product lines that we already have. So we really want to grow possibly another product line, or we want to, expand on the product lines that we already have. In the next year or so, we would like to possibly look at entering new markets. And these are the type of markets that we are looking at tapping into. So based on that strategy, we all sit in as an HR team and build an HR strategy that is going to support the business strategy. Where OD comes in is that you have an opportunity to create a picture of what success is going to look like through your structure. So the structure that is going to have the capabilities that you require to tap into new markets or to expand on product is going to look, this is the type of capabilities that you're going to require. So that also then extends to talent acquisition. They now know the type of talent that needs to be engaged for the current and the type of talent that needs to be engaged for the future. Because we have a view of how our structure is going to look now and how it's going to shape itself in terms of capabilities to fit the purpose of the strategy in the next 2 to 3 years. And in answering the second question, I think the most important part of implementing OD principles is really holding on to the strategy as much as in the HR community or in business, we hold on to the people in the position. Once we start unlocking the talent from the position, we have an entire talent team that looks after talent, that looks at learning and development, that looks at succession planning, that looks at the entire life cycle of the employee. OD then gives you an opportunity to look at the fundamentals of what is going to drive strategy. What are the type of chairs that we need to have sitting in this structure, not the people that are going to be sitting in those chairs. What usually helps us to break the ice in that type of process is what we call an organizational model. An organizational model really gives you a graphical view of what the business is about. So if I walk into your organization and I look at your organizational model, immediately I'm able to understand what type of targets, what type of products are you targeting, which markets are you operating in. Do you have business and development that is supporting a specific product? You're not looking at an organizational chart. You're looking at an organizational functional model that then tells you the story of the organization. At that point is where you then start to unpack the capabilities that you need in order for you to be able to drive that organizational model. The organizational model then translates into what we call an organizational structure. So you'll have a pillar that looks at sales and development that supports product A, B, and C, and that would be your organizational model. When you now move into an organizational structure, you then say, what are the type of roles that I need to have sitting in this sales and development pillar that is going to support product A, product B, and product C respectively? At the same time, you're then going to look at the product lines and you're saying, what type of skills and competencies do I need to look after product A, product B, and product C?
So just to add on that, because I mean, from what you just mentioned, right, in terms of the relationship between OD or OD practitioners as well as HR is critical, right? You also need to get buy-in, because in order for you to be successful, we also need to play our part, you know, in making sure that we we ensure that the strategy is, you know, how do we say it? It's it's taken, it does, yeah. So what is the relationship like between the OD practitioners as well as HR people, making sure that we know what's expected from OD to ensure that everything that needs to be done is done?
HR is my oxygen. HR business partners, the HR community as a whole is interdependent. We form part of a value chain. Now, when we're talking about a value chain, you know, it's a process that is interlinked. And we need to understand when information or data lands on your desk and it comes from another function in HR, you need to understand how did that data come about. You need to understand the value that that data is going to bring into your work function. And you also need to understand how you're going to translate that data into what you need to achieve specifically for your function. So it's becoming ever so important that relationships within the HR team are constantly refreshed, not only in a social setting, but also in a professional setting. I think we tend to be very comfortable in our COEs and, you know, being subject matter experts and always just waiting for HR to call on us to come and advise. You know, I enjoy a relationship where HR business partners can comfortably speak through my topic in their exco meetings with their stakeholders, because then they are continuously socializing the OD and reward and the entire COE value chain in the conversations that they're having with business. So the more they know, the more that they will do, you know, and the more you will have time to focus on ensuring that the strategy continues to be fit for purpose, the structures continue to be fit for purpose, and really now start to focus on ensuring that the foundation of HR is solid.
And then getting buy-in is sometimes easy because, like you said, with HR, we just need to understand what the reasons or the purpose is for doing certain things. So how do you then, with top management, if you give out certain instructions or you set out your particular strategy following the company strategy, how do you get buy-in? Because it's not always easy, I would assume, where people would say, okay, fine, this is what we require. But how do you ensure that you get buy-in from top management?
Look, in the same way that you build and establish rapport with your HR colleagues, it's the same that you will do with EXCO and with senior leadership members. It is, you cannot assume that because they sit in those roles, they understand what is it that you're bringing to the table. You'll be surprised that most of them are subject matter experts in their own right, and really the reason why you are there to provide, the expertise and the know-how. So it always helps for you to high level try to position the OD concept with EXCO. As usual, I would prefer the HR business partners to position it. I'm happy to sit in and support on an advisory level, but I really enjoyed when they lead the OD conversations, because then it means that I'm doing my job properly. When we then get buy-in from EXCO, and you'll see I'm moving away from the word I. It's we. It's a team effort. I'm not interfacing with EXCO in the absence of my HR business partners. My HR business partners are always there. They are always present. And this is a team effort where they hold the relationship, I hold the expertise. And, I now need if I have my buy-in already from my HR business partners, the rest is just going to be a lot easier. So, in summary, when Exco understands what is it that you're going to do, they're going to be more receptive to the proposals or, the strategies that you put on the table for the various financial years. When they do not understand your concepts, when they do not understand the value of what you are bringing, it's going to be shut down. And we've seen that a couple of times where it's completely shut down, and it's not shut down because they just don't want organizational design. It's because they don't understand the value that it's going to bring to them. So unpack the value, make everyone understand the concepts, the basics, and make everyone understand the end goal, that this is where we are going. And you will then have, a lot more appetite around the room to partner with you and reach your objectives.
That's correct. I mean, Zanele, we usually see it where most companies still don't have centers of excellence, let alone having an HR department where they still don't find, a necessity for that specific department until something goes wrong. Then we are being called.
Yeah.
Did you
That's exactly where I was going to say. I love it. A lot of things that you said. It's not about I, it's about we. That's the first thing. The second thing that you said was involving HR in all these things that are happening, right? And putting HR at the center of it all at the end of the day. You also, with all of those things that you have said, there's passion in what you say. I'm here listening. She's passionate about this industry. She's very, why this industry? Why OD? Why this career?
And I met OD by accident. So I was really getting HR, there's never a dull day in HR.
Not at all. Not at all. Let me tell
Never
you.
a dull day in HR. There's always something happening in HR. But we pretty much follow the same processes. We pretty much follow, we always looking at what's going on and how can this be resolved by, the regulatory processes sometimes that we need to follow when it comes to managing employees and managing employee performance, pay, etc. So, what matters to me at the end of the day is people. I couldn't have moved into any role that does not have anything to do with people. I had the luxury of being an HR business partner, and I loved it. I loved getting the phone calls from business. Now a kid just came with pink hair. What do I do? I loved the pace of it. But then I fell in love with OD because it really then provides a science to the HR work, and I've just been enjoying seeing how HR has been evolving over the years. We have HR business partners, it was HR managers, it was HR practitioners. We are now business partners, which, by virtue of the job title itself, it tells you that we are now strategically involved. We are partnering with business. We are not administrating HR. We are benchmarking HR as a support function to business. So I enjoy the science of it. I'm excited about the fact that there is, very interesting methodologies and principles. And OD is also still a growing function in the HR value chain, There isn't really anything textbook that we can reference to. So you always have to be analyzing your business, understanding your people, understanding your business environment. You cannot just sit in your HR corner and just be comfortable. You need to engage. You need to understand where are the pain points in business, because the work that you do needs to ensure that it enables the rest of the HR value chain to place suitable talent in place that's going to drive the strategy.
Yeah. So now, just to add on that, is there a difference then between organizational development and organizational design?
Yes, there is. So, having explained OD and high level the principles that we follow in OD, organizational development is all about talent. It's all about people. It's really the learning and development, the learning initiatives that need to go into the people value chain. So in organizational development, for example, if we are looking at a role in the structure that is going to be vacant probably in the next 2 years because we have somebody going on retirement. And we saying, okay, look, let's look at the talent that we have and start grooming talent to, start maybe as a possible replacement of that role. So the grooming part of it is where organizational development would play its part.
Okay, because that's very important. I think I'm just going to divert a little bit because most companies don't go through organizational development so they are reactive in their approach rather than, being proactive and go through the right channels.
Absolutely. The same importance that is in organizational design, I can emphasize with organizational development. The explanation I just gave to you right now is really just brief. Organizational development has a formula to it. It has a science to it. It has methodologies. It has principles that you need to follow in order to get your workforce to a certain level. And that level is the same that is required for the organizational capabilities that we pick up on in organizational design. So, when an OD, an organizational development manager, usually they're sitting in the talent space and, they would then look at the employee life cycle and say, okay, this role is eventually going to succeed this role. And we currently have an incumbent that has so many years of experience, this qualification, and needs to be exposed here and there in order for them to be able to succeed. So organizational development then applies a methodology and a principle that is going to ensure that your workforce is fit for purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to say something? All right. So, Ntshabi, what sort of advice can you give to employers, who don't necessarily embrace organizational development or design rather, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know?
Look, firstly, I would say upskill yourself. Take the time to understand organizational development and ask yourself, is this a function that is going to enable my organization? Really dependent on the size of your organization. Sometimes it just does not make sense to have an additional resource in addition to an HR manager for a small company that is going to just be focusing on organizational design. Organizational design can then be taken on a project basis to support the HR manager and to give the HR manager a view or a framework that they can plug into their everyday HR operations that is always going to be enabling the structure and contributing towards the structure. So, for example, if we do not have a fit-for-purpose structure, we are writing job descriptions incorrectly. We are grading roles incorrectly. So that means we're paying incorrectly. And you will see the ripple effects of all of those processes going wrong in really an unstable talent workforce.
Yeah, because you're not getting the correct
exactly.
Talent in the company.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's where it starts, really. Okay, and then just tell me, there's a lot of things that are changing, right? So we have hybrid work. We get that all the time. People searching for jobs and working from home. How do you think, or how does OD look, or how would it look in the future?
Look, it's going to be even more critical in the future because we need to enable a structure that is going to enable talent to be able to be flexible and work from anywhere. And that is the demand right now. So I'm constantly surprised at organizations that are still trying to bring everyone back into the office. And when we look at the generations that are sitting in our workforce and the generations that are going to plug in as our future leaders, they have a completely different way of work.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you now for sure, it's not sitting in an office. It's moving, it's going to be from hybrid to remote. Let's talk about the flexibility between, those two ways of working. So you can understand how critical then you have to be in applying your organizational capabilities, in applying your organizational model. Because in that organizational model, you're going to understand the functions that you're going to need. Those functions can be spread out. Is the structure going to be able to function with those critical roles spread out? And this is where you see projects such as digitization taking place, where we are constantly trying to focus on digital projects that are going to drive easier collaboration. And that collaboration is, whether you're sitting in Timbuktu or you're sitting in Cape Town, you are able to collaborate on different time zones. So it's ever going to be so critical to ensure that our structure is fit for purpose, because we are now moving into a workforce that wants to work from anywhere. At the end of the day, we need to ensure that we retain talent.
When you're talking about that, right, because we always talking about hybrid work or, just structures working from home, etc. Most managers that you come across then would have a question about performance management. How do I ensure that Zanele is actually working from home? And that's where the projects like the digitization would come in place. That it's critical. Have systems in place that will support that. Because
Absolutely.
even when the people are in the office, what guarantee do you have that they're actually working?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's no longer, you're actually doing your work when you're sitting behind.
Exactly.
It's not about that anymore.
Yeah.
We are really in an output environment. Hybrid works where we're focusing on output. And you cannot be able to measure and track output if you do not have a performance management process, system, framework, something that's going to provide support to ensure that performance is at the expected level. And once performance is at the expected level, you are now supporting to enhance performance, for people to exceed expectations and thrive in what they do. Part of thriving for me as an individual, for example, as opposed to Zanele could be inspired by going to the office. Zanele's energy could come from interacting with people in the office. I could thrive in an environment where I just want to be quiet and work. I can collaborate, I'm able to collaborate, but I thrive when I am in an environment that enables me to focus, and not necessarily be in the office environment. So we need to be able to cater for both. You understand? We need to be able to provide collaboration tools that are going to enable employees to thrive wherever they are.
Yeah. That's very important. Companies have to be agile. Companies need to, because things are moving very quickly now. With COVID, you had to make sure that things change. We were forced to stay at home and we made it work.
No, I cannot tell you how many companies, before COVID, we were talking about flexibility. And just, flexibility, or in the midst of us talking about flexibility, we were talking about, we going into, was it the fourth industrial revolution and technology, this and this and that. And
it was still
it was a concept. And I promise you, there were companies, in those days I was still consulting. There were companies that would tell us straight up that, look, we will never be able to function working from home ever. When we talk about flexibility and when we look at employee benefits. And I was, sitting on the couch and sipping on my favorite cup of tea and having a giggle, watching companies scramble to try and get laptops. It was just a mission to try and acquire enough laptops to ensure that your workforce is enabled from home.
Exactly.
Right? Should that not have been a contingency plan if we are already talking about flexibility? Whilst we were talking about flexibility and you were warming up to it, you would have already started to think of frameworks that are going to make that type of way of work to work for the business. So to our surprise, most companies pulled through
Which
during
they did.
COVID,
Yes.
and they're still standing up until today. So what prevents us from continuing to ensure that, look, at the end of the day, majority of our employees are happy in a hybrid environment because they are able to balance home and work? Why can we not at least give them that?
Yeah, because some companies are still embracing that. Some companies are still continuing with that whole, option of
Absolutely.
employees working from home, and they are thriving.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
had a lot of IT positions that were filling, and Ntshabi, out of 10 people that we could, I'm just making an example in terms of the numbers, 8 out of 10 were asking. That was the first question. Am I expected to work from the office? If not, that's a turn off. I'm not interested.
Yes.
I think that's also because people have found a balance to say, when I'm home, I either work extra hours or I've got more things done than when I'm at the office. When you're at the office, there's a lot of distractions for other people. Like Nthabi was saying, some people want to focus and do whatever that is needed at that particular point in time, whereas some people would need the engagement. So companies have found that particular balance. I think even when going back to organizational development, now a lot of institutions or training institutions have online systems. So that's a transition that companies are also need to be implementing.
Absolutely.
To say, now that there's online systems, how do we develop our employees on online platforms? Even if it's just a short course, even if it's just a Teams meeting. Here's Nthabi, who is a specialist in this particular industry. Let's educate you on that.
Yes.
It's also something that falls within that stream.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
With change, people always relay it back to, it's all about money. Do I have money to start the different initiatives, to move into a different direction, right? How would you assist, or how would you advise companies to ensure that their strategies are cost effective?
Look, a strategy is an aspiration until you have a structure that actually delivers on the objectives. And when you are putting your strategy together, you plan your strategy per financial year, but you also have a long-term strategy that provides a compass in terms of where are we ultimately going, and what the objectives are going to look like at that point. What I would advise businesses to do, especially when it comes to organizational design, is to appreciate the fact that organizational design's objective is not for you to change your structure. Organizational design's objective is to show you what success would look like based on your strategy, based on the capabilities of your organization, and the type of talent that you need to engage to get into those roles. So, in as much as we also forecast and we also plan financially, and, OD and finance also at some point, meet along the line when it comes to framework, because we have to put in place a formula that is going to inform finance. What is my people cost percentage going to be looking like in this financial year? And what is the impact going to be looking like based on the strategy that we have from EXCO for the next 2 to 3 years? So in understanding as well where your priorities are as a business for that financial year and the following financial years. You're able to scale out your implementation throughout those financial years. So it's not something that you need to do and complete now. You know, it's an ongoing effort. It's an ongoing effort that is there to guide you in terms of where is it that we are thriving to go in terms of structure and talent. Yeah.
Okay. Ntshabi, I think Zanele mentioned this a bit earlier on, that, you know, you can see the passion when you're talking about, you know, your functions or OD, right? And you also mentioned that it is a team effort.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? I like the fact that you always educate. You're not working in isolation. You're educating your HR business partners. So it's not a matter of, I want to shine. It's a matter of, how do we make the organization better?
Yes.
How do we get competitive advantage in the market? So for somebody that wants to study, because we've got a lot of, you know, different kinds of people that are looking at the podcast, for somebody that wants to go into the same role and follow the same direction, what sort of competencies, let's start with the competencies, would they require?
They need to be passionate about people.
I think any role in the HR department, you need to be passionate. But can I just also add, I'm sorry,
not everyone's an HR person.
I was about to say, and we need to identify what that passion looks like, because it's different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you enjoy solving problems, people problems, then you can most probably think about a career in HR. You need to be passionate. You know, OD wakes me up in the morning. You know, I need to be passionate about it. I was just telling my boss the other day that I can't shut down. You know, I'm struggling to shut down because, you know, there's so much excitement. There's so many things happening, you know, with, you know, you see strategies changing and you get excited about a strategy changing and you're thinking, you know, we're going somewhere, you know, this is going to be exciting work. So you really need to be passionate about what you do. You also need to be someone that is able to follow processes to the T. And you need to be able to clinically look at structures and roles outside of people, right? And as much as we're passionate about people, there are places in the HR value chain that allows us to plug the talent in, to plug the person in, and then unpack what is it that needs to be served in terms of the employee value chain from HR around that talent. You need to be able to understand the HR value chain. So anybody that wants to go into OD, you have to start with HR. You need to understand the purpose of HR and how that entire HR value chain process works. And then once you get that full-on exposure, I mean, I sometimes laugh when I see my HR business partners. They're constantly running from one meeting to the next. And, you know, there's always people issues. There's always that energy to serve. There's that energy to fix. There's that energy to find solutions, you know. So you really need to have that in order to be successful in this career.
Just one comment, when you're saying that we always want to find solutions, which is correct. We had a visitor who, her role, she doesn't call herself like an HR practitioner, HR manager. She's an HR solutionist.
Oh, I love that.
I love that. But I thought at that moment, I thought that's exactly what we do. And it just sums up everything.
Yeah, no, look, I promise you, I'm yet to think of a day where somebody came to my office with a solution. They're always coming with a problem.
With a problem, exactly. You need to find a solution. No, that's true. You always have to be on your toes and think of solutions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that I thought, you know what, it sums up who we are in the organization. Because at that moment, you need to come up with a solution. Whether good or wrong, but you just need to come up with a solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Other than being the fire brigade. We definitely
Yeah, no, that's
solutionists.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
definitely.
Thank you very much, Ntshabi, for coming through.
Thank
Anything
you.
that you want to say just in closure? Because I mean, this is quite an exciting topic, specifically for
Yeah.
employers, just so that we can start embracing having, you know, centers of excellence within your company, having HR business partners and seeing them in that light.
Yeah.
Because rightfully so, we no longer, you know, administration within
Yeah.
the company. Yeah.
Look, if you're still asking your HR manager to print payslips for you, you're in trouble in 2023. To be honest with you, then you really need to start unpacking the value of HR. And once you start unpacking the value of HR, you'll be enabled to position HR in an environment or within a framework that is going to propel its success and therefore ensure that there is a successful people solution. And as I said earlier, a strategy is an aspiration until you have people executing that strategy. I think over the years we've seen how critical talent is, how critical it is to retain talent. We are now talking about retention. How are we retaining our talent? OD is also a retention strategy because, you know, once you have a view of how your structure is going to evolve over the years, you are also able to plan better for your talent and actually show them career paths that are in line with their career aspirations. So I really think that HR is a critical function. It stood out for me, and I still take my hat off to all my HR colleagues who were in the forefront of COVID. And I still get goosebumps when I think about what some of my HR colleagues had to go through during that period, you know, so including you.
I'm getting flashbacks.
It's scary. And I think, look, firstly, let's exhale. Let's compliment ourselves and let's gear up for the future now. You know, we know that anything can happen. Anything can disrupt business. So we need to be prepared. So I would really advise businesses to really start investing in their HR departments and enabling HR to do what it's meant to do best, provide solutions to people issues.
No, you need a round of applause. Shame. That was beautiful. Well said. We need a because wow. That is well said.
Thank you very much, Ntshabi, for coming through. We really appreciate it. We've learned a lot, and I hope, like we always say, the podcast is basically just to educate and share some knowledge. If you don't take everything, at least take one thing from the conversation.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for tuning in. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or there's anything that you want to share or talk about your stories from your own companies, please comment below. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.
1, 2, 3.